Good afternoon. It's Saturday, the 3rd of January. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The Palestinians have taken the last formal step to join the International Criminal Court, prompting threats of retaliation from Jerusalem and vehement opposition from Washington as an obstacle to reaching a negotiated peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. Ramallah delivered its ICC application for membership yesterday, days after suffering a defeat at the United Nations Security Council, which rejected a resolution on Tuesday that would have set a 3-year deadline for the establishment of a Palestinian state on lands captured by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War. Palestinian UN Ambassador Riyad al-Mansour said that PA leaders are now studying all options, including a return to the UNSC, whose newly appointed members from Venezuela, Angola, Malaysia, Spain, and New Zealand are being viewed as more favorable to their position. The Palestinians may also pursue further action at the General Assembly, where none of the nations hold veto power. As far as the ICC is concerned, it will take 60 days, according to procedure, for the State of Palestine to become the 123rd member of the organization. Joining is part of their broader strategy to pressure Israel into withdrawing from the territories and agreeing to Palestinian statehood. After the submission of the application, Mansour restated the Palestinians' intention of filing charges of war crimes against Israel.
This is a very significant step in which we will be going through it to seek justice through a legal option. It is a peaceful option. It is a civilized option. It is an option that anyone who upholds the law should not be afraid of. And it is an option that we are seeking in order to seek justice for all the victims that have been killed by Israel, the occupying power. The last group of them, more than 500 children in Gaza last summer, more than 3,000 children injured, and 1,000 more of civilians killed and injured. This is only just to mention one example. Of course, we all know that according to the Rome Statute, settlement is a war crime, and therefore, we will be seeking justice through this stipulation in the Rome Statute. And other cases will be referred to the ICC as our leadership see fit as we move forward, meaning that we reserve our right for retroactivity about crimes committed by Israel since the creation of the ICC.
Hamas today condemned the fatal shooting of a 17-year-old Palestinian by Egyptian guards on the Gaza border yesterday, saying that the incident was an excessive use of force and is not in keeping with neighborly relations between brothers. Palestinian medical officials and residents in southern Gaza identified the victim as Zaki Hopi and said that he was killed during his attempts to slip across the border to obtain cigarettes to sell back in Gaza with 3 other teenagers who were taken into Egyptian custody. As the already strained economy in the Hamas-controlled entity further deteriorates in the aftermath of the summer war with Israel, many Palestinians have sought to migrate to Europe through Egypt amid rising concern in Cairo that Gaza could provide reinforcement and arms to the Islamic insurgency that it's battling in the Sinai. Earlier in the week, Egyptian officials announced that work to double the width of its buffer zone with Gaza will begin next week as part of increased measures to prevent terrorists from infiltrating into the peninsula. Some 800 Palestinian homes are being demolished in the process of constructing the 500-meter-wide no man's land along the 10-kilometer border that was ordered after the mass casualty suicide bombing in October that left 33 Egyptian soldiers dead. Officials in Tehran are today denying reports of reaching an agreement with Washington to ship much of Iran's much-needed nuclear material that's much needed for nuclear weapons to Russia, as has been widely reported. And meanwhile, 2 unnamed international diplomats told the Associated Press that during the last round of atomic talks in December, for the first time, negotiators succeeded in drawing up a catalog outlining areas of potential accord and differing approaches to the remaining disputes. The sources did acknowledge that differences still dominate ahead of the next round of the Geneva talks between Iran and six world powers slated for January 15th. But they indicated that the ability to reach an agreement over the creation of the so-called to-do list hasn't been possible in the past because of the wide gaps between the sides. Iran continues to deny its pursuit of nuclear arms, but was forced to the bargaining table with the U.S., Russia, China, Britain, France, and Germany to end the crippling international sanctions, compelling the curbing of its nuclear development program. Negotiations have twice been extended due to the stubborn disagreements between the sides. The main conflict is over uranium enrichment, which can create both reactor fuel and the core of nuclear arms. Toward efforts to reduce Iran's bomb-making ability, Washington is proposing that Tehran export much of its stockpile of enriched uranium, something that the hardline Islamic Republic has long rejected. And here at home, Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman has adopted a somewhat more diplomatic position toward the police during comments he made before an audience at a Sabbath cultural event in Kfar Saba today. Just days after delivering scathing remarks against investigators of the vast graft case involving several of his Israel Beiteinu party's members and supporters, Lieberman today said that it is the duty of the police to investigate any suspicion. The foreign minister went on to express his faith in a justice system, saying that people who make mistakes should pay the price. He did, however, accuse the media of already convicting those accused of wrongdoing before the probe into their involvement has even ended. Earlier this week, Lieberman alleged that the police and the judicial establishment are maintaining a personal vendetta against him and his party, saying that this is the sixth investigation against them with no criminal convictions so far, but that it reeks of political motivations given the timing just ahead of the general elections. In the latest probe, 31 people have been arrested on suspicion of a series of corruption charges following a year-long undercover investigation. Meretz leader Zahava Gal-On today expressed her deep concern over the reported stoning of an American diplomatic convoy in the West Bank by settlers yesterday, and she is calling on Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon to do everything possible to bring those responsible to justice immediately in order to avoid another unnecessary confrontation with the U.S. Gal-On charged that Ya'alon has not taken violence on the part of the settlers very seriously in the past, giving them the impression that they are above the law. U.S. consulate personnel say that they were attacked by armed settlers carrying axes who pelted them with rocks as they visited the Palestinian village of Tremurs Aya at the request of U.S. citizens who reside there to investigate complaints by Palestinian farmers that settlers have uprooted 5,000 of their olive tree saplings. State Department spokesman Jeff Rathke said that the consulate vehicles were damaged but that no one was hurt during the incident, and that the American security team did not draw their weapons, which is contrary to reports from the settlers who insist that the personnel drew an M16 and a pistol during the confrontation. The State Department is now working with Israeli authorities to establish the details of what happened, reportedly including video footage that was taken during the incident. Labour Party Chairman Isaac Herzog is blasting the Likud for the lack of female candidates in the top spots of the party list voted in by members during this week's primaries, pointing out that the Likud lineup today has fewer women than the number currently serving in Saudi Arabia's parliament. Herzog said that the Likud isn't worthy to lead the nation. During other comments that he made today during a cultural event in Mevaseret Zion, Herzog expressed pride that the female representation on his own party's list for the March 17th elections will be significant and central, and that the Labour Party overall will be balanced and present the right candidates to lead the country. During the Likud primaries, Knesset member Miri Regev won the 5th spot and was the only woman who placed among the top 10 candidates. MK Gila Gamliel was the only other woman to secure a realistic place on the list at the 14th slot. During voting at the Likud station at the Jerusalem Convention Center, IBA's Eli Wogelanter discussed the general election campaign with two of the party's Knesset members.
The campaign really didn't start yet. I think that the beginning of next month, all the parties will finish their primaries, they will elect the leadership, they will design their campaign principles, and it's only going to start then.
This is not my first time. This is, I think, my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th time. So I used to it, and I think this is a very great day for the democratic. And it's very important, and like you see, it's like everybody is here, and we can convince to vote for us, and it's important.
It was 23 days ago that the Knesset dissolved itself. We have another 11 weeks minus 1 day till Election Day. It's already been chaotic. What do you make of this campaign so far, and what do you see happening in the next 11 weeks?
What we need to do is to have a very good list of our Likud party, and then from tomorrow till the elections, what we need to do is to work hard everywhere, in the universities, in all the campuses, in schools, to all the young people to say to vote for the Likud, because we want a very strong party that we can do all what we want to do for everybody. It's very important to be strong with more and more members of parliament of my party. And what we need to do is to convince the people that the Likud party is the best.
In other news, worshippers at a Swedish mosque that came under attack 2 days ago found the doors covered with heart-shaped messages of support upon their arrival for Friday prayers. Members of the Muslim community are expressing gratitude for the show of support from their neighbors in what is part of the Love Bomb campaign organized by local residents in Uppsala, the fourth largest city in the Scandinavian nation that has recently been plagued with anti-Muslim incidents. The mosque was the target of a firebomb attack and racist graffiti scrawled on the doors that urged the Muslim community to leave. The attack is the third on Swedish mosques recently and follows the strong showing in the September general election of the Swedish Democratic Party that advocates a 90% reduction in the number of immigrants allowed into the country. Turning to Lebanon, where thousands of residents in Tripoli attended the funeral of former Prime Minister Omar Karami, who died at the age of 80 after an illness. Senior Lebanese political figures also came to the service, including former President Michel Suleiman. Karami served as prime minister between 1990 and 1992 when he was forced to resign due to economic instability. He then again held the post in 2004, but stepped down that time along with the government just a year later amid the backdrop of widespread demonstrations following the assassination of former Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri. Karami was named Prime Minister designate in 2011, but he quit just months later after failing to bring together the diverse political rivals to form a coalition. Karami was part of a prominent political family that included his brother Rashid, who served as Lebanon's premier 8 times and was assassinated during the country's civil war when a bomb blew up the military helicopter that he was in while flying to Beirut in 1987. Staying in the region, and Islamic State forces have reportedly seized 170 men from 2 villages in northern Iraq in their campaign to punish those suspected of burning the organization's black flags. Residents in the area say that the fighters from the radical Sunni group came to the Kirkuk province villages in some 30 villages and took the captives to the center of the nearby town of Hawja, where they maintain a court and a prison. The father of the Jordanian pilot being held captive by the Islamic State today called on the Sunni fighters to treat his son Mueth al-Kasaba as a guest. The 26-year-old first lieutenant comes from a prominent Sunni family and was seized after the downing of his plane over Syria last month. He's the first known prisoner that ISIS is known to have taken from the U.S.-led coalition battling the Islamic State. The Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Fuad Twal, led a delegation of senior Christian leaders to the Kasaba family in Al-Karak in a demonstration of solidarity with the family. Jordan is one of several countries participating in the coalition, which has been launching airstrikes against the Islamic State targets in Syria and Iraq since September. Even though its brutal actions dominate the media, much is still unknown about the Islamic State terror group that controls large areas of Iraq and Syria. German author Jürgen Todenhofer recently gained rare access to the jihadi group, as we see in this report from CNN.
It's an extremely rare glimpse into the inner workings of the most dangerous terrorist organization in the world. German author Jürgen Todenhofer managed to visit ISIS territory both in Iraq and in Syria.
They are only 1%. It's a 1% movement in the Islamic world. But this 1% movement has the power of a nuclear tsunami. It's incredible. I was so amazed. I couldn't understand this enthusiasm.
Todenhofer spent several days in Mosul, Iraq's second biggest city, conquered by ISIS in June. He even visited the mosque where ISIS head Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi gave a speech earlier this year. He also met with child soldiers.
How old are you?
I am 13.
Todenhöfer even managed to get access to a Kurdish prisoner in the hands of the extremists.
What did they tell you? What will happen to you?
Our captors said that we have Islamic State fighters imprisoned with the Kurdish regional government. You are prisoners here, and we will trade you back for our fighters. They didn't say they will kill or slaughter.
Todenhöfer says people living in ISIS-controlled areas are in fear of the harsh penalties for infringement of the stringent laws. But there's also a sense of order and stability. According to Todenhöfer, fighters say they often manage to defeat much larger armies, like the Iraqi military, because they're not afraid to die.
Took you how many days to conquer Mosul? 4 days.
We didn't kill 24, but we killed a score of them. So they got terrified and ran away. We don't retreat. We only fight, and God Almighty will victor us. Those who have reverted from Islam do not have a solid ideology, so they ran away. They came to fight for the tyrant, fight for money.
During battle, he learned, many of the ISIS fighters wear suicide vests, willing to blow themselves up rather than be captured. In one interview, a senior ISIS fighter warns the US and Europe.
We will conquer Europe someday. It's not a question of us wanting. We will. We'll kill 150 million, 200 million, 500 million. We don't care about the number.
Atrocities ISIS has already committed suggest they're serious about their threats. This German author's visit to the Islamic State shows a brutal, merciless group, but also one that won't go away anytime soon. Fred Pleitgen, CNN, Munich, Germany.
Now taking a look at technological developments, and Israeli ingenuity has led to the development of a remarkable new touch-free smartphone that enables the mobility impaired to operate applications and features with just head movements. Here's more about the new invention. Gior Livni is an electrical power engineer who has been a quadriplegic and wheelchair-bound since 2005 when an accident left him paralyzed. He made several technical adaptations to improve his quality of life, including lifts and ramps in his home. After watching an interview with Oded Ben-Dov about a computer game he created that could be played with head movements, Livni contacted the entrepreneur and inspired him to use his knowledge to create a touch-free phone. The two men collaborated in 2011, and the result is Open Sesame, a Google Nexus 5 Android smartphone.
I can do everything with the phone. I can call, I can receive calls, I can use SMS, WhatsApp, I can play games, and in the very, very near future, I will be able to operate a lot of things at home.
Sesame reposition.
The smartphone is tailored to help meet the needs of the mobility impaired and equipped with technology to customize itself to users' faces, with their head movements controlling the navigation of a cursor to select applications and operate features.
Sesame created the world's first touch-free smartphone. It is a smartphone for people who can't move their hands, people with disabilities, from spinal cord injuries to cerebral palsy to ALS to more. Through voice control and head movements, you can operate the entire phone, download any app you want, and it will work right out of the box.
Livni and Ben-Dov's Sesame-enabled company is now among 10 finalists of Verizon's Powerful Answers Award, a multi-million-dollar worldwide challenge for the provision of innovative solutions. The two launched a crowdfunding Indiegogo campaign so that they can complete the development stage of their project, which has so far been tested on 10 users. Residents of the House of Wheels Association for Children and Adults say that they are impressed with how the phone gives them access to activities that most people take for granted. Hani Shalevit says that the Sesame phone gives her an opportunity to communicate with the outside world in terms of technology, allowing her and many others to join everyone else in the progressive world. After trying it for the first time, Yana Fernandia praised the device for enabling those who lack the ability to hold a phone for themselves to operate it automatically. She said it definitely opens a whole new world for people with special needs. The phone was designed with the 10 million people living worldwide with a form of paralysis in mind, but Ben Dove says it has potential uses for everyone.
The technology in its core is touch-free control for digital devices. You can imagine using it in the kitchen while you're cooking and your hands are messy, while driving perhaps. Any task that revolves your hand and you need to do something on top of that. Now we believe, like many other accessibility solutions, once it's perfected on this crowd, it will overflow to more mass uses.
In fact, Livni says that the sky is literally the limit for the ways that he plans to use the Sesame phone.
The next step will be driving a car with the iPhone or with the telephone. And of course, my aim is to get to the moon with the phone.
Turning now to the weather, and we are seeing a serious rain system moving toward us in two waves. The first begins today with rains intensifying at this hour throughout much of the country, continued with occasional showers in the north and center tomorrow and snowfall on Mount Hermon. The second serious system is due to hit us around Wednesday, when we're likely to see some sleet and hailstorms, and some meteorologists are even saying that we may see snow here in the capital. We'll have to wait to see that, but for now, here's the forecast at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope to see you again tomorrow, and I'll be back to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a wonderful and warm week, and shalom from Jerusalem.